All right, so this is the second to last series of short reviews for the year, and uh, I'm picking some of the best records of November for these selections because I don't have time or focus to review everything from November. All of these are going to be good. All of the ratings are going to be fairly high, and that especially counts for Angrenost's Magna Lua Ordem Mystica. This Portuguese black metal quartet now includes the drummer from Miss Thurming, and this adds a more human dynamic to their rhythm section, and that's the most important aspect of this. But also, this is a very different, more involved record from these folks, they kind of started out with a more of a luminous, what I would consider an atmospheric or Luciferian style in the late '90s, and they moved that up over the years to something more operatic and a different sound here on this record, which is varied, more involved pieces, a lot of impressive musicianship, and a very dark purpose here in the way that they share themselves in their lyrics here. Um, Overall, I just think this is a very strong record. It's just very stark and aggressive, and I really appreciated that. It kind of just kicked my ass, and that's what I wanted. Echoes of the Future is the third full-length album from Aeolian, and I think this is probably a big release for most people in the melodic death metal spheres, because this is one of the standout bands of the last several years, probably the last 5 or so years, because they've been so good at pulling back to what it was great about the initial Swedish death metal movement, with elements of melodic metal that you might pull from Rotting Christ or Dissection nowadays. And while they started to lean a little bit into sort of power metal tinged ideas on the last record, on this one they really do focus on catchier songs that are just melodic death metal. And I think you can pick up this record, hit any song on it, and you get an idea of who the band are, and you get a great song, a catchy song. And I think that's what melodic death metal in this style should be. It is sort of mellow death, instead of just melodic death metal of the early '90s. But you still get the sense that they appreciate all the classics of the earlier '90s too, in terms of the compositions, the riffs, and some of the aggressive parts of this record. There are a lot of songs on this album, and some of them are maybe less important than others in terms of their hook or their bit, but there's a lot to choose from in terms of what is just great on this record. So I had a great time with it, and definitely comes with a recommendation. I only regret that I didn't write a longer review of it.
Into the flames of disgrace.
So November 24th was just completely stacked with releases, and of course that means that something is always going to kind of get bumped down, even though it's well above average and really impressive. And I think Temple of Scorn's debut full-length Funeral Ultra Epiphanies is certainly one of the more impressive death metal debuts of the year. In fact, it's just that there was so much coming out in this month. This one kind of got bumped down. So this is a Danish band, and it has members of pretty well-known groups like Ex Mortem in there, as well as Based and some other groups. But this is an Immolation-esque death metal band. It's pretty uncompromising in that respect, in that it is aggressive, it is old school in its affect, and it doesn't really fuck around. It's a classic death metal sound. There's some doom to every piece, and there's this kind of lunging, doomed despair that comes through across the full length of this listen, and it was really effective for me. I think that it feels like they're definitely forcing you down a corridor with the might of their growling riffs and their strong sound. And I was expecting something more brutal and kind of less zombified here, but this is a great result. It's something that I really enjoyed. If you're a fan of groups like Drowned and Cruciamentum and Orthodoxy and the way they've developed Death Doom into their sound, I think that this will be equally appreciable. And it would probably be a bit of a surprise release for anyone who kind of missed it. So another high recommendation. So you'll remember over the last few years, I've reviewed a couple of records from Heads, a sort of noise rock slash sludge rock band, a post metal band in some respects, and some of those folks, the ones that are based out of Germany, have been focusing on Zon for the last few years, and this is a krautrock influenced post-punk and kind of post-rock and noise rock band who are instrumental and focus on some electronic music beats as well throughout. So this is an experiential instrumental record, and the only reason the score is lower is because there aren't lyrics to consider or a theme that I understood. So otherwise, this is one of my most listened to records of the last several months. I've been kind of obsessed with it. It's a double LP where it's just full of variety. It's full of classic sounds, and it's got a little bit of everything in there that keep it moving. And the way they've curated, I think it's about 80 minutes long. The way they've curated the ride through, it's infectious, it's engrossing. It's one of my favorite instrumental records of the year where I could just sit with it and chill out with it. And there were only a couple of those overall that I really had the patience for, and this is one of the best ones. So definitely check it out if your taste spans from like electro hip hop to krautrock to noise rock. You know, there's a lot in there, and it's all worth checking out. Immortalized is the second full-length album from Daimler, and I think I've covered most of their releases so far in one way. I really enjoyed A Thousand Suns, their first full-length album. I wasn't as excited about their first EP because I didn't know what to expect, but I found they've risen to a pretty high standard of quality on each of their records, and this is the best one yet. Their main influences are Finnish and Swedish death metal, but this isn't kind of the usual HM2 driven record. It's a little bit more horror themed. It's got more riffs than you would expect. There's sort of a thrash influence running through all of it, as there should be. But this record is a little bit more groove oriented than the last one. It's got a little bit more of a kind of a Carcass-esque bounce to some of the songs. Overall, it's a little bit long, but it's another impressive record from this band. I appreciate their themes of the science fiction and whatnot, and I think it's a cool project. So otherwise, I love the album art, and I'm looking forward to what they do next. Magma Trace is the third full-length album from Wet Cactus. This is a Cantabria, Spain-based psychedelic stoner rock quartet, and one who definitely has a great love for desert rock and that type of stoner rock, but also the alternative rock that sort of also had arisen at the same time. And on this record, what they do best is they lean into a couple of psychedelic pieces. They sort of they cut away from the catchier, sort of rousing pieces and zone out once in a while. It makes for a longer record, but maybe a more involved record. And if you're a fan of this style and the many things that they touch upon in their unique take on it, this is probably going to be their best record yet for your taste. It was for mine, and I was pretty impressed.